All right, let's do it. We do it every Wednesday at this time. It's time for the crossover with our pals Don Taylor and Rick Dhaliwal from Donnie and Dhali on Check TV. You can check out the program Monday to Friday, 10 to noon on Check TV. Always a pleasure to have them on for the crossover. Donnie, Dhali, what's going on, fellas? No, I don't think we have the audio here. I can see Taylor's mouth moving, but I cannot hear anything. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
There we got you now.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear us?
All right.
That never happens on our show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Must be your producer.
Wow.
He's a nut bar, that guy.
He says it's your producer's
All sorts of
fault, so I
audio
don't know.
issues here.
They'll have to sort it out behind the scenes between the two of them. I don't know.
Every producer in the world, it's their fault.
Yeah, it's always the producer's
on a
fault.
busy show, the Canucks and the Penguins tomorrow, Islanders yesterday, and Pete Carroll being let go. A lot going on.
A lot going on for sure. And look, I mean, we were just raving about 3 and 4 nights, and not just winning 3 and 4 nights on the road, doing it in the style they did it in. I mean, we talk about statement games. That was a statement set of games for the Canucks in New York.
Yeah, and I think the thing that sticks out most for everybody who watched them, and look, there were some great numbers put up. I mean, first and foremost, they won all 3 games. They swept New York for the first time ever. But just how spectacular the goals were. I mean, the Pettersson goal yesterday, first of all, started by a great steal by Hronek. I think that gets lost, but tic-tac-toe with JT Miller. Hughes' goal, and then you go back to New York and what was going on there. I can't remember the Canucks scoring these type of goals on a regular basis for a long, long time. That, to me, sticks out more than anything. And, yeah, the wins are great, but they're also really entertaining wins with spectacular plays, and that just not supposed to happen with the Vancouver Canucks.
I like the way Rick Tocchet said, they asked him about the lotto line and how you got it together. And he says, people told me about the history of the lotto line and all that. But 18 points in 3 games, whoever came up with the idea to put those 3 guys together, for them to go through New York like that, like, guys, 6 goals, and then 5. Pettersson, 8 points, 5 goals in his last 3 games. He got his 20th last night. They're just a fun team to watch. You never count them out. They're resilient. The amount of points they get from their blue line is incredible. I think Colorado is the only team from a blue line perspective that has more points than the Canucks blue line, which is at 119. And the Canucks blue line's going so good now. You're sitting guys like Ian Cole out, Noah Juleson the other night. These are good things, as Donnie would say. These are good problems to have. So you look at somebody tweeted their 6 defensemen at the halfway point of last year. I mean, my goodness. Now look at the 6. It's a night and day. But I want to say this: the biggest difference from last year is they have a management team and that's on the same page as the coach, and the players are buying in to what the coach is preaching. Rick Tocchet, to me, guys, is made the biggest difference, and because he's got the same core that Green and Boudreau did, but he's doing different things with this core. But what a difference! And if you go back the first 41 games last year and the first 41 this year.
Yeah, I mean,
audio issues.
Yeah, no, Drance just was thinking about his question there.
No, I'm not. I'm fine. Sorry. I thought I was having audio issues, so I was scared to talk from my hotel in Pittsburgh. No, Pettersson, so when this is a 5-man unit with that Miller, Pettersson, Besser line, and then Hughes, Hronek together, it was about 21 and a half minutes together in those 3 games in New York. 8 goals. 8 goals for, unbelievable stuff. How much has that deployment change and what we saw right off the bat from that group changed how you're viewing this team's ceiling? Because it's significantly altered my opinion on it.
Well, you know what, Thomas, I believe you're the one who asked Quinn Hughes that question yesterday, post-game. Have I got that right? Okay.
Yep.
Did you
The one
notice
he
his
laughed
face
at?
when you
He was
asked him that
smiling ear to
question?
ear.
He just lit right up. I mean, their most talented players, they were having fun before this, right? Because they're winning games for the first time in a long time. And now you have the 5 of them together. Oh, I mean, look, there's a kid in everybody. They're just loving this. Throwing the puck around. They're playing with the most talented players on their roster, and you can tell they're really. I mean, you always look forward to going to the game when you're a hockey player. It's a whole lot of fun, or at least it's supposed to be, not just a job. I think they're having more fun than ever right now, and the fun comes with success. It doesn't get any better. That stats. It was a great stat, outscoring opposition 5-on-5, 8-1. And I can't get the way Quinn Hughes looked at you when you remind him of that. They're having fun. That means a lot.
I want to mention something what Donnie's talking about fun. What about the way Connor Garland jumped into Tyler Myers' arms? I mean, after the goal. That tells me that, this team's having a lot of fun is what Don's saying, and it's true. That also tells me that's a good dressing room right now. Like, you know what, guys? Go back to last year. A lot of long faces, a lot, and here we go, another year of losing. These guys are playing for each other. They're having fun. You could tell it's a good dressing room. You can always tell when it's a good dressing room and maybe when it's not a good dressing room. But I thought the way Garland jumped into Myers' arms last night, I mean, I know maybe people don't read into that stuff, but for me, that's pretty significant in team bonding, team
He can fit, too, so that helps.
Well, he's not the tallest guy, but but I just think on what Donnie said, they're having fun, and you could tell it. Body language is huge in the game of hockey, and these guys they're feeling it right now, feeling it.
Well, and I got to say, I mean, he's not the most demonstrative guy, but look at Elias Pettersson going from kind of rotating cast of wingers, and it's Sam Lafferty and Ilya Mikheyev, and, Kuzmenko's there sometimes, but it's not really working out. Now he gets to ride shotgun with Miller and Besser, and look at that feed, the play he makes with Miller. He wasn't making that play with Ilya Mikheyev before, and I don't know if we're going to see that same kind of, jubilation from Pettersson that we see from the other guys, but it's got to be a good thing that they're putting him with those line mates and they're having that much fun on the ice right now.
Okay, and I can't remember who was doing the interview, but I'll go back to, and look, I focus a lot on what happens with reporters and with media. I'm in that business. But Pettersson, and I think I've got this right, Thomas, I think he actually smiled and kind of laughed during an interview this week. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Again, we go back to this, and again, you got to enjoy yourself. I haven't seen that for a long, long time. And, and even the goal he scored against New York, after he scored it, he let out a big whoop. You just don't see these sorts of things. It's really fun to watch. And the other thing that Rick and I have noticed, and I'm sure you guys have as well, but on Twitter, all the Eastern types, David Amber and Jeff Merrick, and we've seen Justin Williams on the Hockey Night in Canada panel or the Sportsnet panel just waxing eloquent about the Vancouver Canucks. It was almost like they were discovering them. And again, it's just something we haven't seen for a long, long time. There's a lot of belief in this team right now.
And for them to do it with the East Coast voters and the East Coast media, Donnie, guys, in the last 3 games, they're making people believe. And maybe the guy, Thomas, your buddy there, that he won't rank Quinn Hughes as a third-tier defenseman anymore. This is what happens when you play back east and you roll through there like, just Godzilla. And you know what? Right in front of the Eastern voters. Because Canucks, when it comes to year-end votes and awards, the Canucks are going to be, they're up there in a lot of categories. So for them to roll through New York like this, pretty impressive.
Let's just remember my colleagues at The Athletic, who I disagreed with at the time, had Quinn Hughes ranked 12th among defensemen, but it was the ESPN list that had him ranked behind Seth Jones. Let's just all remember. I just want to protect my buddies just a little bit. Honestly, the word that comes to mind, gentlemen, when I think about the type of hockey the Canucks played in New York this week is joyful. Like, it's joyful hockey. And I think that's why it's resonating, not just with the Eastern media types, but I think in a major way with fans in this market. Rick, we reported over the weekend that the Canucks were wanting to see just a little bit more before deciding whether or not to push chips into the middle of the table. I mean, how can a series of games like that not resonate with Canucks management as they weigh their priorities at line.
Yeah. So if you're the Canucks management right now and you just watch them beat the Devils, Rangers, and Islanders, what are you thinking? Like, do you add a big piece, a middle tier piece, or just do some fine tuning? What they do at the deadline is going to be amazing, guys. But yeah, I still, if you decide to go for it all, like Rutherford did in 2006 with Carolina, then the first round pick's going to be in play and prospects are going to be in play. And I don't know, guys, if I don't know what your thoughts are, Thomas or Donnie, but they're just finally starting to get some decent prospects and keep their first round picks. Do you want to see them blow all those guys out of the water for one shot at the cup?
Or do you bring somebody in and risk? And it worked with Recchi and Waite and Jim Rutherford with Carolina all those years ago. But do you risk losing what you have right now? And the general feeling is that they need a top six winger or a center. But what does that mean to? I know a lot of people hate this to the room. Look, it's a pleasant problem. We'll throw it in that category.
But Rick,
I use that.
Rick, I know you've been talking a lot about the UFA situation, and to me, I look at it. You just look at the guys. Joshua, Bluger, 2/3 of that line that's playing so well. Zadorov, Myers, Cole on the back end. All of them are playing really well. I don't think you're going to be able to keep all of them. So I look at it and say,
you can't keep them all.
You've found the right mix. You've found this mix. Everyone's playing well. Everyone's in the right roles right now. I don't know if you're going to get a much better shot at it than this. And, Drancer was saying before you guys came on, the league looks pretty wide open right now. Look, the trade has to make sense, but I just think everything is aligning. The stars are aligning, and I think sometimes you got to look at that, and you got to be willing to push your chips in, even if it means a first-round pick or a top prospect.
Okay, so Jamie, did the stars not align for the Boston Bruins last year when they set records in the regular season? And they went out and got Bertuzzi and Orlov. Did the Rangers not go out and get Kane and Tarasenko? How did they do?
Yeah, sure. It doesn't always work out. Only one team can win the cup.
It doesn't work out.
But if they don't make but Rick, what if they don't make a move and they go out in the first round? Then we're going to be saying, "Oh man, they should have loaded up. They should have tried to go on a run." I'm saying you can increase. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that you're going to win the cup, but you can increase your chances of going on a run if you bring in a big piece. I think you can.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too. I talked about you don't want to mess with chemistry and all that.
Yes.
But then again, as I sit on the fence, as I often do, but then again, if you don't pick up a big piece, what does that say to the rest of the room? Like if you pick up a big piece, then management is telling players, hey, we believe in you guys. Here you go. Away you go. Let's see what can happen. Just really interesting and fun times.
It is. Yeah. But what's the cost? Yeah. Is it a first-round pick and Willander, Lekaramaki? Are you willing to do that and then go out in the first round like Boston and the Rangers?
I don't know.
It's such a tough call.
Always risk. There's always risk, right? You got to manage the risk. But, yeah, I would absolutely be willing to do a first and either Verlander or Lekaramaki for the right piece. Now, that's got to be a really good piece. That's got to be a really, really good piece, right, that you feel really confident about.
If it's that
it can't be a rental.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Right? You want the term. You want them to be around next year. But again, I look at this team. I mean, the best goal differential in the NHL, first place in the division with a cushion. They're probably going to have – they're not just going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to have home ice in the playoffs in the first round. Why not? Like, if this isn't the time to go for it, if this isn't the time to push in with the way your best players are playing right now, with the way Tocchet has them buying in, when is the time going to be to push your chips in?
Okay, so Jamie, you say you want a guy with an extension, right?
Well,
yeah, a guy with term.
Go ahead.
A guy with term, ideally, yeah.
No, I just like that Jamie's channeling Jim Kramer over here. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
That's right.
Boy, he'd be a high roller in Vegas, this Jamie guy.
Not with my bankroll.
If you want a guy with term, you show me where there's money for term. Pettersson's got his hand out.
Yeah.
Hronik's got his hand out. You got 7-8 guys that are UFAs. They all want raises. You didn't even mention two guys when you're talking about UFAs, Casey DeSmith and Teddy Bluger, who, all these guys are going to want raises. So where do you have money to acquire a guy and give him an extension for 5-6 years at $6-7 million? Like
Joshua, too.
Yeah, Joshua. The money juggling they have to do this year, the Canucks, is going to be Unbelievable.
But see,
Unbelievable.
that's again like. First of all, I did mention Bluger, Rick, when I was listening to UFAs. Didn't mention DeSmith.
Okay,
but I
sorry.
did mention Bluger. That's all right. That's all
DeSmith,
right.
okay.
But again, like
That's
I
right.
think I get what you're saying about, okay, you're going to need those cheap players coming up in the future. But I also look at it and think you have this mix of UFAs, right? They're not all going to be back next year. So you don't know what your team's going to be like next year. So try to make the most of this year. Try to make the most of how well your team's playing right now. Anyways, I've said my piece, but I get it. I think the UFAs pushes the UFA argument to me. Helps say that you should go for it this year.
You know what helps?
I'd add this.
If they get a couple of guys from Abbotsford next year that move up,
Yep.
and become
Buck
regulars.
Olsen.
Is that going to push them to a Stanley Cup?
No,
though?
Donnie, but it helps with the money situation.
No,
That's right. Yep.
I just think, too, you have to account for the fact that Hronek and Pettersson will not be this inexpensive ever again for this team while their sort of core group is in their prime seasons, right? JT Miller will not be this young again on this contract. You don't know if you'll have as healthy a season as this team has had to this point. Canucks fans everywhere, knock wood as I say that. And we all know that the Oliver Ekman-Larsson buyout cost is sort of coming down the pike.
Basis.
I mean, without question, I want to note this prominently. Like, I didn't think this team had something like this in them when this team was being assembled by Canucks management. Hats off to them on executing their vision to this point. But, I do still think there is this isn't a team with a long window necessarily, right? It's not a team with a 1-year window either, but I do think you're looking at a 3 or 4 year sort of window where you can reasonably expect this group to be at their best, within the constraints of the cap. I mean, at some point, you do want to take a relatively near-term shot. And I do think, Rick, as many decisions as you've got coming down the pike, like if your ad is a guy who helps fill, like if it's a middle six or like a good second line center or winger with size, partly you have to think of it as, well, that's the guy who will help us replace Bluger or Joshua, right? Or whatever our forward need is as those guys price themselves out. I mean, not to agree with Kramer over here, but I might be on team bye myself at this point. As hard as that is to imagine.
And if you want to keep that lotto line together, as I refer to it, the 649 line, the lotto line, I took a lot of heat for that.
Don't get us started.
But what you mentioned? Do you get a center or do you get a winger? You keep them together, and then you probably want a center for that top six or the middle six, as you say, Thomas. You know what, guys? We don't know what to do here.
Yeah,
like as people who cover the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, people who are fans of the Vancouver Canucks out there, people really don't know what to do because it's been so long since they've been in this position.
Yeah.
People aren't sure, and they also know how quickly things can vanish.
Well, look, it's a lot more fun to have this conversation than the conversations we were having this time last year. I can tell you that much. And look, before we let you go, I mean, we're debating it, but Rick, it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvey, and the front office think. Do you? I know you guys reported they were waiting to see maybe a little bit more. Do you think they'd be willing to put a first-round pick or a top prospect or something like that on the table in the right deal?
Yeah,
be a late first-round pick, right?
If they make the decision as a management group to go for it, oh, absolutely. Jamie, if they decide in the next week or two to say, you know what, we think we got two, they got to answer two questions. Are we a legit top team in the NHL? And the second one is, can we play playoff hockey and be successful? If they answer those two with yes, they're going to go for it.
All right, guys, that was fun. I enjoyed that. We'll leave it on that note for now. Great. We'll do it next week. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll chat next week, guys.
Nice
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Have a good
Taylor.
trip. Be safe, Thomas. Be safe.
Safe travels.
Thanks,
travels,
buddy.
Thomas.
I'll wear my helmet.
All right. That's Don Taylor and Rick Dhaliwal.